calls across the nation to defund the police.
To end policing as we know it.
Off the charts violence in New York City. 11 people shot in just 8 hours on Sunday.
This is about the police officers who every single day put on that uniform and they run towards danger when we run away from it.
Good morning, Vietnam. No, that's what somebody put in the comments. I'm embarrassed. Welcome to the Failure to Stop podcast channel. #1 show where police meet society and culture. Tonight you have stumbled into the Nightshift episode of Failure to Stop because we do 4 different shows a week with lots of different hosts. It's all geared towards first responders. But I'm here joined always with Andrea Uplate. Andrea, what do we have tonight for tonight's breakdown?
Hey, y'all. Yeah, tonight we are going to talk about Robert Hansen, serial killer out of Anchorage or around the area of Anchorage, Alaska, back in the early 80s. And when we talk about this, if you haven't heard of this guy, a lot of people haven't. You'll be amazed that you haven't, because he's right up there with any of the stories, the John Wayne Gacy's, the Bundys, the BTK. We'll discuss maybe why this would be that he's not quite as prolific or quite as known. But my inkling is that probably just because it was in rural Alaska and it just kind of didn't make big waves in the lower 48 potentially. But it'll blow your mind.
It will indeed. I'm excited. It's a story about humans hunting humans, and that's why I have worn my bright orange hunting cap. And also, Alaska, there's a lot going on in Alaska right now. So I like what you did here. We've got balloons flying over Alaska. We've got this huge pipeline that's going to go into Alaska that a lot of vintage people are really upset about. So there's a lot of Alaska stuff on the news. I don't know if that's why you chose an Alaskan story or not, but or maybe it was subliminal, right? Like maybe
it was totally
maybe you just saw Alaska so much in the news. But if you want to like and support this show, it's very easy. All you have to do is leave a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you consume your podcast. If you're joining us in the live show on YouTube, you can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can become a paid member if you'd like to. Also, super chats are back. You want to throw us $1, throw us $5. Somebody's already thrown us 5 bones tonight, and we really, really appreciate that. We have a meetup coming on the 12th, which is right around the corner. The hotel is already up. It's not full yet, but there's a lot of people staying in the hotel. So if you want to come out here to that meetup, it is going to be Wednesday, April 12th. And that's going to be just outside of Raleigh, North Carolina at Instill Distilling Company, where we will have a meetup from about 5 to 8. And then everybody will go right down the road to the studio, where we'll have a live little Q&A with all the hosts from all the shows. One More and I'm Out of Here podcast will be here. Drew Breezy will be here. Jonathan Bates, Ted Leg Media, Andrea Uplate, myself. We will all be here up on stage. You guys will get to tour the facility, see where where the main office is, and we'll have some hors d'oeuvres and some free stuff there. So really excited for all of that. Today's show is brought to you by ghostbed.com/Wolfpack. It sleeps so good, it's scary. So if you would like to also support the show, you can support us by supporting our sponsors, Ghost Bed. But I'm not going to take up any more time. I want to dive into the Butcher Baker of Alaska. I love the title. Did you come with that title yourself, or did you have
I didn't.
our
That's
producer
actually,
help you?
That's what who helped me?
Did Elijah help you on that, our underpaid producer?
No. That's actually what this guy has been coined, is the Butcher Baker. And so we'll talk about why.
Ooh, the Butcher Baker.
Butcher Baker. And
I had a friend, but he wasn't known as the Butcher Baker. He was known as the Gay Baker. He made gay wedding cakes for Christians.
The Gaker.
Yep, a Gaker. He was
that doesn't always work.
There was all of his cakes had cream in the middle and a cream filling inside. True story. It's a true story, Andrea.
Okay. I'm going to start actually with really quick updates on a couple of things. A couple of headlines just most recently, currently in the news. I don't watch the news, so I have to, outside of current cases that we've covered or that we've had a show on, that stuff I'll keep current and all the time. Otherwise, I don't watch the news. So I feel like I'm in middle school looking for my current event for the week to bring to class, because otherwise I don't watch it. But a man, this is a good feeling news story. A man who served more than 3 decades of a 400-year prison sentence for armed robbery charges was just freed yesterday. His name is Sidney Holmes. He's 57 years old, went in in his 20s. He was convicted in April of 89 for a robbery in which they accused him of being the getaway driver. But it was only based off of witness testimony, like an eyewitness statement. No other evidence tied him. It was just one person saying, yep, that was him. I saw him, identified him with their eyes, and he was convicted and served, like I said, over 3 decades and was just set free. He contacted the state attorney's conviction review unit in 2020, and they found that his car was most likely misidentified at the time. There's some big differences between the getaway car and his car. Anyway, based on the review, 5 of 6 independent panelists voted that he should be innocent or was innocent, and his conviction was overturned immediately, and he was released.
Yeah, that's good news. If you would have been a football player like Ray Lewis, like there was overwhelming evidence that Ray Lewis was in the car when that shooting occurred, right? He was the getaway driver. Something like that. I might have that story.
There's a couple of football players who've been in cars that were notable that were
little drive-bys, but they didn't do 400 years in prison for being involved in stuff like that. That's a shame. I'm glad this guy got off. That's why we do what we do. I feel like we had a hand in that. If it wasn't for true crime podcasters, this guy would have had no hope. So probably was an avid listener, just like Abby. Abby Ellsworth, she has a podcast called On Being a Police Officer. I got to be a guest on that show. I think Drew Breezy and Jonathan Bates were guests on there at some point or another as well. And so she's in the chats with us. And I'm excited to go back and listen to those episodes. But if you want to hear a podcast that's done by somebody who's not law enforcement, but somebody that really asks some really difficult questions, might be the hardest interview I've ever done. Also, I think it was the first interview that was about my book. She read my book like in a night, which was kind of creepy to me. Not creepy, crazy. That would have been the word I was looking for. Mainly because I'm not a reader. It takes me a month to read my own book. And I wrote it. And if I went back and read it right now, it would take me 3 months. She did it one night. So that to me is crazy. But she asked me some really great questions. I was not prepared. I feel like it was my worst podcast that I did myself, because I just felt like I was underprepared myself. She did great. I did terrible. So if you really want to go and listen to a podcast that I sucked on, that would be the one to go here. If you want to, what it's like when I'm great. But now if you want to see me when I'm at my low, that would be the one. That would be the one. I was at my life. I think so. No, she's a great interviewer. That's probably why I would never want to go on a real podcast like Joe Rogan or something like that, because when a real interviewer asks me questions, I fall apart. I'm not good at that. So she has some tough questions. So
she said in the chats that it drops tomorrow, actually. So look forward to hearing that. That's awesome. Thank you, Abby. Another ultimately it's a redeeming story, but it's not a feel-good story for sure. But just this week, just recently, a 13-year-old girl who had gone missing in Dallas was found this past Friday in Lexington, North Carolina.
Oh my God, I'm going to Lexington.
She was locked in a shed 1,000 miles from her home. She had been abducted, molested by a man she met on a social media platform. They were able to find, his name is Jorge Ivan Santos Camacho. He's 34 years old, arrested on charges of abduction, human trafficking, statutory rape, other charges still pending. He is being held on a $1.25 million bond, the records show, but they found the child alive. So
that's great. That's crazy. I was just invited to Lexington, North Carolina for a wakeboarding thing. So pretty interesting stuff there.
So one more. I've got one more update.
Oh, one more. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, just one more really quickly. This is actually on Dylan Rounds. So the farming boy in Utah.
He's dead, right? He's dead.
Yeah, he's dead. We still don't have his body. But we touched on this last week. There's a little bit more specific information now. We found out that his phone had been found in a pond or near a pond. We knew that he spoke with his grandmother the morning that he went missing at 6:30 in the morning, 6:38, something like that. And the Jim Brenner, a man who lived on the same property, ultimately was just recently charged with the murder of Dylan. And we said something about there could be some video of him cleaning off a gun. Well, it's actually very much more specific than that. It looks like there's video, a forensic examination of the phone. yielded a startling clue. There was a video that reportedly showed Brenner wearing a bloody shirt while he cleaned blood from his hands and from a gun. The shirt was then seized by investigators and was found to have Round's DNA on it, the Box Elder County District Attorney's Office said. So now they're all saying, like, how in the world? This was obviously a very accidental video that was taken. I think that when in the moment, he must have just accidentally pushed record as he's cleaning up the scene and doing whatever he's doing to dispose of the body.
Like, how much blood can you get on you when you shoot somebody?
Nobody said,
I've seen a lot of people get shot. It's not like blood like sprays all over the place.
Well,
I mean, I have seen some where it's been.
There was
like,
blood on his shirt and blood on the gun. I mean, I'm sure that.
Wow, it must have been like point blank, like right in the skull or something, like right in the head, right in the neck.
I would almost assume so. And
Yeah.
and this video was taken at 7:30-ish in the morning, so right at about an hour when he had gotten off the phone in a hurry, if you remember, because it was raining.
Yeah.
And he wanted to secure the grain truck under shelter. So he got off the phone, and about an hour later, he was dead within the hour.
Jeez, man. I wonder where the body's at.
Oh, well, remember, that's the place. There are so many like old like mills and like caves and caverns.
Yeah, but they've searched so many of them.
Well, yeah, they have, but a lot of volunteers have taken it upon themselves. Not that they can't, find something, but to do this because law enforcement just can't be tied up.
There's no way.
Huh?
Right. Yeah, there's just no way.
And it's just such a vast, if you remember that, it's a barren landscape. I mean, you can just kind of go out and I'm sure that, but you know what? We'll see. I feel like his body isn't going to be very far away. I
know, right? That's what I mean, remember my first thing was that he was in the grain truck. That was one of my first.
I know. I thought he was in the
I was like, check the fucking grain truck. He sunk in there and he died. Man, that Dylan Rounds case is always going to be one that's like always close to me, just because we've talked to the family members and we talked to the PI and man, that's a crazy case.
Wait,
huh?
May I?
Yeah.
May I? I did just re-up the clip with Jim Terry recently because I felt like I never want that to leave our memories. But am I mistaken when I say that he wasn't saying that? Did he say that Jim Brenner did this?
Mm-hmm.
He did?
I'll have to go back and listen to the episode, but
I thought it was the other guy, the guy who had like. Do you remember there was a lot of like?
Well, he thought maybe like the gay guy.
That's the guy
that
he thought
divorced.
did it. I thought.
Yeah,
because he was so.
Well,
mad.
I mean, he thought. Remember, I think we all thought that like everybody was in on it. Like it was like this kid was because the way he told the story is that nobody liked the kid, that he was like a bossy rich kid or something. I don't.
Well, I think that the reason we
may or may not have had too much to drink that show.
The reason, we couldn't.
I think
even
you did
talk.
too, actually.
Huh?
I think you had a lot to drink. We were together that night.
We were together that night because he wouldn't stop talking.
Yeah, we finished a lot of alcohol during that show.
We couldn't talk.
We couldn't. So we just drank.
That's
right. It was a good show. Still one of my favorite shows.
Yeah, that's funny.
It was fun.
All right. You guys want to talk about Robert Hansen?
I want to talk about the butcher baker of Alaska.
That's Robert.
Robbie. Do we call him Robert? We call him Bobby? What do you want to call him?
Here, I'll show you. I put some pictures of him. I put some pictures of him up on Andre Uplate and on the Failure to Stop website or Instagram. But here's a picture if you haven't seen him.
Golly, that guy is beautiful, man. Jeez, he looks like a fucking serial killer.
He looks like a serial killer.
He looks like a serial killer.
So Robert Christian Hansen was born in February of 1939. I'm just going to read a tiny little bit of his bio, and then we're going to get kind of right into the middle of the story and then kind of circumnavigate that. He was born to Robert Christian Hansen in Iowa. He was the oldest of two siblings, and growing up, his dad was, they say that he worked him really hard and he was a tough dad. We don't have really accounts of actual abuse or these other kinds of things we see in some of these stories. I don't know if he was like just super tough or if he was like a lot of the dads were in the 40s. The dad did own a bakery and forced Robert to work in this bakery for long, long hours, resulting in not very much downtime at all. But again, in the 40s, like kids weren't just, I mean, you had things to do. There were responsibilities given pretty early on, I feel like. So anyway, there's that. He also was never, so he was made fun of. He was pretty small in stature, even in adulthood. He never got over, I believe, 5'6". He was very scrawny. He had really, really bad acne that caused pockmarks on his face and scars as an adult. And he was very self-conscious of it. And he was very awkward around other people. And so he was bullied. He was teased. And then this just perpetuated him being more awkward.
I wonder if they ever called him a cake eater. Remember in the 90s when that was like a big one? Cake eater.
Cake eater.
Yeah, they even used it on Mighty Ducks.
Why don't I remember that?
It was just it was like a 90s, like a lot of Yankees used it. Cake eater.
That's why I don't know it.
You cake eater. I'm like, yeah, okay, fucking I'm a cake eater. Okay.
What does it mean? Is that somebody being like chunky?
No, they would just say it like I don't know. They would just, I mean, you could call anybody like cake eater. I don't know. Like I don't. Even in the Mighty Ducks, it wasn't reference to the fat kid.
Huh?
Should have been Goldberg.
I will own cake eater.
Dude, call me cake eater all day.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
No, I'll take it.
Yeah,
better than toxic white man.
Exactly. All right. So keep in mind. So we'll start with this. Robert, early on, like I said, not a great time in school. He graduated when he was like 19 or so, 20. He convinced a local kid, a 16-year-old, to go with him to burn down the local school bus garage. No one was harmed in this. The kid actually felt I think he felt very coerced to do it. Went to local authorities, told what happened. They arrested Robert. He had just gotten married. He got married, I think, at 20, very young, to this lady. He got charged with 3 years of prison, or convicted to 3 years of prison, but served, I think, between 16 and 20 months and got out. So she immediately divorces him. I mean, the second he was charged, she's like, what's this guy doing? Red flag. He just committed arson. I'm going to go on and excuse myself from this marriage. So she leaves. He pretty soon after he gets out of jail, finds another woman and gets married. And they eventually move to Alaska. So they have a couple of kids, and now they are in a place around 25 miles outside of Anchorage, kind of near Anchorage, Alaska. So that's a little bit of where Robert kind of came from and what's going on in his life at this point. So in the 1970s, the Trans-Alaskan pipeline, the big oil line, was being built.
Right.
And this brought an influx of workers. So it brought a lot of men who were making a lot of money and a lot more income than they were used to seeing. So a lot more disposable cash was flying around. We're in this particular part of town where the pipeline was being constructed was adjacent to a bit of an undesirable area that, it's already Anchorage. There wasn't a whole lot there to start with. And in this one particular district was known to have a lot of sex workers. So a lot of prostitutes, a lot of strip clubs or topless bars, as they called them, these kinds of things. So you've got the mix of a lot of people coming in, an influx of new population, working, making money they're not used to seeing, and then these kinds of activities and working, like the sex working going on very close to that, led to a lot of disaster, really. Around this time, a lot of women in that field start going missing. But at this time, no one's seeing any kind of a pattern. They look back and realize this later on. But we know it's right around the same time. Again, money's a-flowing and people
I wonder if that's going to happen again, because the Biden administration, like literally this week, approved a $7 billion drilling project. A bunch of Alaskans are pissed off about this. Actually, I might cover it tomorrow.
Can I say something? Because I don't generally talk politics. I will say this, though. It's going to take so long for it to be approved, but it will. And then once construction starts, it won't be under his administration. And then whoever is a conservative seated president will be blamed for whatever bad happens with the pipeline.
Sure. But it's yeah, I mean it was like big breaking news this week. A lot of Alaskans are really upset. A lot of people were shocked on this one. There's a lot of climate control people, a lot of people
well, I don't want to get in it because but I'll tell you what, it's beating your head against a wall because
I want cheaper gas. Fuck those Alaskans, dude. That place is
not
huge.
about the Alaskans, it's about ultimate.
Just kidding, Alaskans.
Whatever. It's a long game. If we keep playing a short game, we are never gonna get ahead. This is ridiculous. Anyway, getting off my TED talk. All right.
Well, no, I just think it's crazy that we talk about the oil pipeline in the past and what it did for Alaska, and we're about to see it replay out again. So history always repeats itself, Andrea.
Well, let's hope it doesn't in this.
It's repeating itself. We're gonna have another butcher baker. I go ahead and throw all the bakers in prison now. Let's just do like what Canada does. Just get ahead of it. Start throwing them in jail now. Every single baker, so it doesn't repeat itself.
So our story tonight is going to take place on and around the Knik. It's Knik, the Knik River Valley. Again, this is about 25 miles from Anchorage, and most of the murders, or at least the discoveries of the bodies, are going to be taking place right here in this area. It's pretty barren. It's a vast landscape. It's known for hunting, trophy hunting, particularly of some of this big game. So, excuse me. So things like mountain goats, Dall sheep. A Dall sheep is like the sheep that's got the big curled horns, black bears, and moose. So on the morning of September 12th of 1982, the story is, that's where we're going to start our story. All right. So like I said, we're going to take it back and come back to after that to see how this all plays out. But on that day, John Daly and Audie Holloway, these were two off-duty Alaskan or Anchorage police officers, were out there hunting. They've hunted this area many times. They were very familiar with this rough terrain and with this landscape. So they're out hunting. The day goes on, the sun starts to wane, and they've not gotten anything. So they decided to call it a day, right? So as they're kind of walking through this Knik River, they, since they were experienced with all of this and avid outdoorsmen, they decided to go on and take the quicker route, which was to walk across a pretty wide sandbar there at the river. In doing so, they came about a boot sticking out of the like sandy soil there in the river.
A boot?
And, a boot.
A boot, eh?
A boot. A boot.
You're talking a boot.
A boot. I'm talking a boot. A boot.
You're talking a boot. A boot.
A boot. A boot.
Hey.
So it's the worst. And so they find this boot, but upon closer inspection, they realized that there was the partially decomposed bone of like a leg and part of a knee sticking out of this.
Damn, and they would know. You would know. You would have taken it home with you.
So they didn't.
You would have taken it home, put it on your front porch in a Ziploc bag, and gagged on it for a few weeks.
I knew as soon as I told that part.
What?
So they knew not to disturb the crime scene.
Are we just going to ignore this? Like, what happened with the fucking bones the human bones? Did we ever?
They're not human. Did
you ever solve it? Did you ever solve that case?
They're pig.
Did you get that confirmed by a scientist?
I looked in a book.
No, not likely.
They're too thick to. Okay. Unless they were like an adult little person.
Well, I mean, I would discriminate if I was a murderer.
It's just
drug cartels don't discriminate. You can be a little person, big person, trans, gay.
What's up?
Jewish.
So listen up. So they decide to. They step away immediately. They know not to disturb the No, Sarah, not with you. They know not to disturb the scene. They mark their location so they know where to go back to find it or to tell authorities to come back and find it. And they go on and make their way up and out of camp. All right. So they get back up to, civilization basically and go to the local police department, to their buddies, I guess. And they put Sergeant Rolly Port was assigned over the investigation. He was a Vietnam vet. He was considered one of the top investigators at that time in the area. He took painstaking measures to examine the body. Of course, all the things you do, all the pictures, trying to find any trace evidence he could before bagging up the body, and then took to work sifting around the body in the sand, right, with a sifter, and did this for hours and hours and hours. And when finally, after, I think it really was 3 or 4 hours of just sifting and sifting, he was left with the casing or the shell of a 223. They send the body off, and a preliminary autopsy was performed in Anchorage, where they determined this to be a female. Age was undetermined. She'd been dead for approximately 6 months, and the cause of death was 3 gunshot wounds from a .223 caliber bullet. Some ace bandages were found intertwined in the decomposition that had them lean toward the fact that she was likely blindfolded upon the time of her death. It took 2 weeks to finally identify her, and she was finally identified as 24-year-old Sherry Morrow, who was a dancer from one of the bars there downtown Anchorage. According to her friends, she was going to see a man that had offered $300 to pose for her to pose for some pictures.
She fell for that one? Oh man. What year was this?
Well, it was 1982.
Oh, I guess that was like but I feel like let's go back.
24, and she worked in this district with all these like
strip
clubs and a lot of sex workers. So a lot of these
Do you think a stripper now would fall for that? Hey, I'm a photographer. Why don't we come back to my
No, but see, a lot of these girls, when I was reading about it, weren't just strippers. They were providing sex work as well, like separately. So they were in the business of getting in the car with somebody, and getting paid for services. So I think she probably thought it was a good deal to get. We've all been there. $100, huh? We've all been there. So they did determine, upon finding her body, though, and realizing that when they found out that she had been shot per the autopsy, excuse me, that she had been nude upon her murder because she had been redressed. Her clothing didn't exhibit any bullet holes whatsoever. So that's just a little tidbit to tuck away and know about. So over the next couple of years, there had been an increase in the number of women in this profession going missing. All right. So many of which were the dancers, the prostitutes. Before this, not much attention was given to this population of missing women. We know, we've talked about this before. That's, I think people would like to think that serial killers are just so hasty and so rash that they make these very quick choices and they just have to kill. But, a lot of them are incredibly intelligent, and they know. It's not to say that he didn't know that this, in fact, we'll go on to talk about exactly what he did say, but he knew that going after these kinds of girls is much different than going after suburban moms. There's just going to be more light on the other. And so he's got a much better chance of getting away with stuff. And these girls going missing, a lot of them, not a lot of them, but plenty of them were not necessarily currently in contact with their family. So or they had traveled to be a part of this after that pipeline. So it's, he knew what he was doing, and he targeted.
Are strippers in Alaska pretty, or is that like just the bottom of the bunch? So like the bottom of the barrel?
I've heard that while Alaska itself is amazing and the people are kind, it can get weird, right? That's what I've heard. But if you are living somewhere pretty solo and away from everything,
I just feel like if you're a hot stripper and you can make money with that body, that you're not like, yo, let me take this body to Alaska.
Yeah, but see, if they were not already living there, like these girls, if they moved there, they were moving there during the pipeline construction.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, entrepreneurs.
So keep in mind, they found that body in the creek bed, but right now they weren't tying this. We don't have a pattern. They're not noticing, or tying that to any of these missing girls yet. They don't have multiple bodies. But then it starts to get a little crazy. I'm reading a lot. I wrote a whole lot today. Yes, today, the day of the show. Don't you worry about it. But I've been listening for a long time. Anyway, so in fact, the Anchorage police detective, Maxine Farrell, said, quote, in 1980, we don't believe we have a mass murder out there, some psycho knocking off girls. In fact, exactly what you have. So Lyle Hogsman was a state trooper there in Alaska who was assigned to determine whether or not Sherry Morrow's murder was an isolated incident. Sherry Morrow, if you remember, is the one they just found in the creek bed. So the first indication of a possible link appeared to be with two unsolved cases from 1980. So that would have been 2 years prior. They found Sherry in 1982. In the first case, construction workers had been digging near this road, Eklutna Road, and found the partial remains of a woman, but animals had kind of taken the rest of it. There just was really little to no evidence left at this point. She had never been identified, and she was dubbed Eklutna Annie based on the road that she was found on. I will say that present day, she is still the only victim that has not yet been identified. Later that same year, another body was found nearby, and this woman was later identified as Joanne Messina, and she was a local stripper there in that same area. Her body was so badly decomposed the same way, and there was, again, little to zero evidence there with her. So we still don't have much.
I guess it's crazy. Like when I think Alaska and I think bodies decomposing, I feel like a bear would eat you before you could decompose.
Well, and that's what happened. Wrong. There was one. Look, one of the bodies that they found when they went back, a bear had eaten very much of the woman, and the bear came back while they were there about to examine the scene. They had to stand back because the bears were endangered. They were like a protected species, so they had to stand back while the bear did what the bear did to the woman because they couldn't shoot the bear.
It'd be like, I feel like when the bear ate the stripper, it turns into Cocaine Bear. Come on, strippers and blow.
That's so terrible. But I just feel like that's a weird, I never want, like I don't mind hunting, like legally hunting, but like I would never want just to shoot a bear. But at the same time, at what point, like, well, bears are protected. We can't shoot the bear, but yeah, let him go on and like desecrate, like just finish off this course. Like, I don't know. That's weird.
Yeah. I'm like the solving of a crime takes precedence over that stupid fucking bear.
Yeah, no, he was protected.
Well, that's why I hunt humans, because they're not protected.
Well, that's why this guy did as well. Oh, Robert. So here's where it's about to get super crazy. As the months pass,
Drew Breezy says the bear contracts hepatitis C. The bear gets a cold sore.
That's so bad. And on the night of, listen, okay, so nothing much happens. They don't think they're going to find this guy at all. They can't figure out why. Like I said, now we've got 3. They found the 2 bodies from 1980, and they have the one that they found in real time in 1982. You're not wrong, Lastro, probably.
Lastro Lopez says if she was a suburban mom, they would have shot the bear.
Maybe.
Oh, man.
So check it out. So a couple years have gone by. Now it's 1983. So a year after they found the woman's body in the creek bed, okay? Or in the river. So everything kind of turns around here. Earlier this evening, a trucker is passing through and a woman is running and waving him down. Her wrists are bound. She's bloodied. He picks her up. She immediately asked him to go to take her to some motel where she gets there. She's calling her pimp when she gets there. But the trucker immediately goes to authorities because she had guitar strings wrapped around her wrist.
Ow.
And her clothes were disheveled. And like I said, she was bloody and a mess. So she'd gone there to call the pimp. So the police, and he says, hey, I dropped her off here. So the police come to this motel to talk to her. And she tells them, you guys, this blows my mind. So they take her, they untie her and all this stuff. And she tells them this whole story. She said that she had been approached on the street by a 40-ish red-haired man and offered $200 to provide him oral sex.
Ooh,
she agreed to the
that's a lot of
price.
money. It's like
It was
$25 here in Raleigh.
Particularly then. And so she was, well, because obviously he knew he was never paying her anything. Right. So she starts to proceed with the act, and he immediately cuffs her wrists and holds a gun to her and tells her that if she complies, she will not die. He then drives her to his house. It's a pretty upper class area. You guys, he's married with children. His wife and children were gone on holiday.
Okay. So
once inside, he just did horrible things. He raped her. He tortured her. Just really, really terrible things.
It's crazy. Like when my wife and kids go out of town, like leave me alone at the house. I'm like, let me get a pizza and I'm going to just watch whatever I want on Netflix as loud as I want to watch it. Because there's no kids that are going to pop in. Probably not even going to put pants on. And this motherfucker is like, oh, kids are going out on vacay. Well, find me a horde of slay.
Yeah, literally slay. So they have a bit of a rest. And then he tells her he's going to fly her to his cabin in the mountains and told her that he would let her go if she cooperated. Now, guys, let's take a separate note here. He was a world-class hunter, as in he had trophies from around the world in hunting, and he had a room full of all of his kills. So we're talking the big game that we mentioned earlier, and he shot with everything. So he would use a bow and arrow, a crossbow, rifles, shotguns, natural ways to do things. He would do all kinds of things and was actually really skilled at this sport. It's something he had picked up growing up when no one would talk to him and he was being bullied. And he became a very, very avid hunter. Now they live out in Alaska, so he has a little bush plane to, travel with for his hunting expeditions. So he tells her he's going to go on and take her. He's going to put her in his plane and he'd let her go. So they get to the airport and he put her inside a small part of the plane and he started loading supplies. Well, she at this point was already bound, but she saw that his back was turned and knew that if he took her, she would be dead. Like if she went anywhere else with him, which she's 100% right. That's always the case. We know that. Never go to the second location. No. So she looked and was able to hop out of the plane and run bound as fast as she could, just her wrist around, to a highway. He initially started chasing her, but she was able to flag down, like, thank God for this trucker. In that one moment, she flags down the trucker and he relented chasing her when he realized that she had gotten the attention of this trucker who was stopping. So he kind of goes back about his business. Right. So she gets in with the trucker and then everything that I just said is what happens. She goes to the motel. They contact the police, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So she gets there to police headquarters. She makes a formal statement. She describes exactly what this man looks like. She describes his home, what his home looks like. They take her then, her name, by the way, she was a young prostitute, and her name was Merrill Field. They took her to Merrill Field, and that was the airport that she had been taken to. She immediately saw the Piper Super Cub plane that he had that was blue and white. She had already identified the tail number on the plane before they saw it. Then she sees it, gives a positive identification of the plane. All right. This girl knew what she was doing the whole time. They check in with the flight tower. They obviously find his name. The plane belonged to a Robert C. Hansen who lived on Old Harbor Road. So they dropped her off at the hospital to be examined and assessed and taken care of. A group of officers go straight to his house. When they get there, oh my gosh, he becomes outraged. He gets angry with what she's, accused him of. He said that he's never met the girl. He said she was probably, quote, trying to shake him down for money. He said this was absurd. And he responds with, You can't even rape a prostitute, can you?
Can you?
Of course you can.
Oh,
It's horrible.
I didn't think they were real people.
Eric,
That's why we call them prostitutes.
stop it. That's literally what he says, though. Like, he does not consider them, he considers them subhuman.
Like, there's two people that you can't rape, a wife and a prostitute.
So he went on to state that his wife and kids were vacationing in Europe and that he had spent the entire evening with two friends. And here we go. His two friends corroborated his alibi and said that that was true. And now they have nothing to charge him with and didn't look into anything further. So that's
Because
where
she's a prostitute. She's not real.
and this. Well, actually, I know you're joking, but very unfortunately, I think that's a big part of this. I think that
I think it was back in the 80s. I don't know if it's
yeah,
so
I think
much
it
like
wasn't
right
taken
now.
very seriously. I think it would be very different now, but I do think
Yeah.
there at that time, that's exactly, unfortunately, how that was looked. I mean, this woman, when they go into detail of the things he did to her and the fact that she was able to escape, describe him, and memorize the tail number of his plane, I can't imagine how she must have felt when they're like, it wasn't him. He was with his buddies. They all say it. Like,
Yeah.
God, it's terrible. So things seem to start calming down again. But then we have another terrible discovery on September 2nd of 83. This was just 10 days shy of finding Sherry in the creek bed. A year later, 10 days shy of that anniversary. Another body was found, partially decomposed, buried in a shallow grave, later identified as 17-year-old Paula Golding, another dancer and prostitute there from Anchorage. She's only 17. She'd gone missing about 5 months prior. She had also been shot.
She's a dancing queen.
She'd also been shot with a 223 caliber bullet. So at this point, we have FBI investigative support unit has been sent out, and they send John Douglas. So if you ever watch this stuff, read the stuff, look into it. John Douglas is who the show Mindhunter was based upon. He does the behavioral profiling, and he was like just in the height of his career and really known at this point for this. Yeah. So they get John Douglas on the scene, and we're going to talk in a little bit about exactly the profile that John gave, that he made for Robert, because it always blows my mind. And it's super interesting. Sorry, let me see what I got here. So,
are you allowed to be 17 and be a stripper in Alaska?
I think in Alaska in 1980 you were, right?
I guess so. Seems a little young.
So we're going to go back. Like I said, we're going to kind of skip around a little bit. So when all of these murders were taking place, keep in mind, he was just living his life at home with his wife and his kids. He had opened a bakery. This is why he has the nickname, right? So he had opened this bakery. But it's interesting because he needed money to open the bakery, and he even got that fraudulently. He claimed that someone had broken into his home, and he claimed about $13,000 worth of insurance, losses, gets the check, and interestingly enough, needs $13,000 to open his bakery. At another point, he was arrested for stealing a chainsaw. It's like all this like petty stuff he's doing leading up to or while he's doing this other stuff. It's like he's kind of itching to get caught a little bit. When he was incarcerated for the chainsaw theft, he was evaluated psychologically and was determined at that point to have bipolar disorder. And he was given medication that he did not take. And so he would not take it in prison, and he would not take it at home either. Is everybody saying goodnight to Drew? Good night, Drew. Are you going to bed, right?
His laptop's dying.
Oh, okay. Time change has got the best of him.
So he wouldn't take it in jail. His
yeah, he wouldn't take his meds whatsoever. So he was unmedicated, diagnosed bipolar. He comes home. His wife, we'll talk a little about her. She was very, very, very deeply religious. We throw that term around, though, and a lot of times it doesn't mean Christian. It doesn't mean a lot of the things that I think people think. So she's kind of in such a state that he could almost do no wrong because she just thinks he can always be forgiven. I agree that people can be forgiven, but she herself, as his wife, is not going to be the one forgiving him. She could leave him. But regardless, that's kind of what's going on with them. So according to John Douglas, are you ready for this? Here's the profile he built based on all he had was, what do we have now? 1, 2, like 3 bodies, and potentially what the Cindy Paulson, the one that escaped, said. All right. Mm-hmm. So according to Douglas, the perpetrator specifically chose prostitutes and topless dancers because the majority were transients and usually would go unnoticed. He began looking into Robert Hansen's background. He took note of the fact that Hansen was of small stature and heavily pockmarked and suffered a severe speech impediment. Real quick, we find out later on that when he was a child, on top of the other things going on, he was born left-handed, but this was not uncommon. He was forced to use his right hand. So where he already had some anxiety issues and other things, it's likely, it's very likely that him being forced to use his non-dominant hand is what kicked his stutter in, for the record. So
nice. I won't let my kids use their left hand.
I'm left-handed.
Daddy's not raising no left-hander. You'll write like a normal person, son.
Okay.
You put that spoon in your right hand and you eat like a real man.
So
he's left-handed weirdos.
So Hansen said, John Douglas said that he was of small stature, and the fact that he even called that he was likely heavily pockmarked and would have low self-esteem. Sorry, Eric.
He guessed that he had pot marks? Or he's just saying because he has pot marks?
He said would likely. And he said, he said, due to his unsightly looks, Douglas surmised that he suffered from severe skin problems as an adolescent and probably teased by his peers. In turn, he would have low self-esteem, which would have prompted him to live in an isolated area. He considered the abuse of prostitutes a way for perpetrators to get back at women. He thinks that if Hansen was the killer, he was probably using them as a way to get his revenge. We know all of that to be true. Perhaps Douglas surmised Robert Hansen, tired of elk, bear, and Dall sheep, had instead turned his attention to more interesting prey. As the profile progressed, Douglas told investigators that if Hansen was the killer, he was probably a saver and would be keeping small souvenirs from his victims. So the little tokens that we talk about. But they can't find a hole in his alibi. There's not much we can do. Finally, we find out that he is being deceitful. They think that they don't have a concrete hole in his alibi, but they're starting to unwind it a little bit. And they were able to get enough cause for a search warrant. So on October 27th of 1983, they followed him to work, and asked him to come with them to the police station to be questioned. He didn't ask why. He agreed to go along. But simultaneously, a couple of groups of investigators served warrants on his house and plane, and investigators found weapons throughout the house. Nothing, though, that would implicate him in these murders.
As I say, like a weapon in the house in Alaska would be like finding a fork in a kitchen.
Right. Well, so just as they were about to call it a day, they were starting to pack up. A few of them had already left. They discovered a hidden space tucked away in the attic rafters. In this, they found a Remington 5.52, a Thompson Contender 7mm single-shot pistol, an aviation map that had specific locations marked off with X's, various pieces of jewelry, newspaper clippings about prostitutes that had gone missing, a Winchester 12-gauge shotgun, a driver's license, various ID cards, some of which belonged to the dead women. And these, while incriminating, were still not much compared to the evidence that they found at last. He had a Ruger. His weapon of choice was a Ruger Mini 14 that shot 2.23s. And that's the only cause of death we know of, if you remember, from any of these women, right?
If he had a bunch of ID cards, does that mean that there was other women?
He only had a couple of IDs. He did have some various jewelry, but right now we know of 3 or 4 bodies that we know of. All right. So He denied any involvement. They kind of go back and forth for a while. He finally requested an attorney. He was placed under arrest and charged with assault, kidnapping, and weapons offenses. Notice he was not yet charged with murder, so they're getting their case nice and tight. But they charge him with all these other things: theft,
Tight like an
insurance
Alaskan
fraud.
stripper.
And finally, on November 3rd of 83, the grand jury returned 4 indictments against him: first-degree assault, kidnapping, 5 counts of misconduct, and possession of a handgun. Again, theft, fraudulence, blah, 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 blah. He pleaded not guilty. Bail was set at $500,000, but they've got him, right? So now they've got him. He cannot do this to anyone else until they get their case nice and straight so they can charge him with murder. They finally send off the bullets, and ballistic testing completely showed a match from the evidence they found at the scenes to the gun that he had. So with the mass evidence that was building against him, he knew he was very likely not going to win in court. So in 84, he and his defense attorney arranged a meeting for a plea deal. In exchange for a full confession, the DA guaranteed him that he would only be charged with the 4 cases that they knew of, the 4 cases of murder they knew of, and that he would be able to serve his time in a federal facility rather than a maximum security institution. He reluctantly agreed, even though I feel like that's the best case deal he could have gotten. They both sign off. He decides to tell them where everything was, where all the bodies were. He said that once he would get a victim under his control, he would normally take her to his plane and fly them out to his cabin. He would then brutally rape, torture them, and then he would strip them naked, put them in his plane, take them out to the landscape by the river we spoke of, let them go, and then hunt them.
Wasn't that a movie? Did they make a movie? Like,
it is.
Didn't they make a movie about that?
The Frozen Ground is the movie from 2013, I think. And so that's John Cusack and Nicolas Cage. I've been talking about that this weekend too. I don't remember watching it start to finish. We're going to talk about that. But I feel like I remember some scenes with them, like in a cabin, like cleaning guns, like with this weird, creepy smile. I don't know. So when he killed these women, he would ultimately end their life with a knife, or he would shoot them, and then he would redress them. He said that he would give them a brief head start, hunt them down with a hunting knife or a high-powered rifle. He said it was like going after a trophy doll sheep or a grizzly bear.
Yeah.
So we also have, though, I talked about this weekend too. And then it all came back to me. I'm remembering this, and I think I've actually read some of it, but not all of it. In 1924, Richard Connell wrote the book, The Most Dangerous Game. Okay,
yeah, I saw that. I read that.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. I saw the movie. I didn't read the book.
Right. So it was published under a different name as well, but it's become arguably one of the more popular short stories out there. But it's about a big game hunter who is traveling on a boat, goes overboard, finds himself on an island where this wealthy aristocrat basically then hunts him. Essentially, that's the plot of the book. And so many people have likened, of course, this story to that. And then we just talked about the movie, The Frozen Ground.
Yeah, Frozen Ground was really good. It was a good movie.
In October of 2021, so just a year and a half ago, the remains of Robin Plea were identified through genealogy studies. So we're seeing not only are we able to convict the bad guys from these genealogy studies, but we're able to now start identifying victims. So that's a great part of having that.
So this guy that hunts other humans, there's no death penalty for him?
Well, he made the plea deal, remember?
Like we did a whole episode on breakdowns about like it's like everything is a plea deal these days. Everything.
Yeah. Well, and he wound up admitting to 17 murders. He did cooperate in locating the bodies of most. I think they recovered. I feel like they've recovered 10 bodies. And as I said, to this day, okay, so back in October 2021, this one girl was identified, Robin Plea. So that's awesome. as of today, the one that they termed at Luton Annie, because that was near the Luton Road or highway, is the only one that is yet to still be identified. And then in August of 2014, Robert Hansen died of natural causes, and he was 75 years old.
All right, so he's dead.
Yeah, in 2014 he died.
Good for him. Well, we got breaking news.
What?
If you're just tuning in live, then you're going to get to hear this breaking news from Thursday. There's a new site promo for Ghostbed, and that's 50% off all bundles, 35% off the entire site. The code Wolfpack is now, it used to be 35%. It is now 40% site-wide. So it's better than the site-wide sale for the first time. So all bundles are 50% off on the site. Customers want a bundle, you can just use the site discount. Otherwise, you can use the code Wolfpack for 40% off of everything site-wide. The bundles are great with the adjustable base, lots of features. Got that zero gravity TV mode, massage mode. It's got the little USB ports. There's just everything about Ghostbed's incredible. The cooling sheets, the cooling pillows, the toppers and the mattresses, the adjustable base. It's all just so great. So right now, if you go to ghostbed.com/Wolfpack, the savings have gone up, baby.
That's crazy.
Because we've reached a new level. We've sold so many Ghostbeds, and our fans have been so loyal to Ghostbed that they are now giving better discounts.
So, what's that code that you need to use?
Wolfpack.
Where are they made?
Hunt you down like a wolf pack. USA. I have always had the fantasy of hunting another human stateside. And there was a movie called, it's another one of the movies. It's very similar to the one that you just did, except it's similar to Frozen Ground, but it's on an Indian reservation. And it has who's the guy that played Two-Face in the original, the really ugly actor that's in everything? He was
is it James Caan?
No, he was in the movie.
Sorry,
man, I can't think of any movies right now. He was Two-Face in Fugitive. He was also in the movie Fugitive, Two-Face and Batman, and he was in U.S. Marshals. He was also in The Hunted, which is about hunting a human, which is my favorite movie.
It can't be. Oh, he's saying Tommy Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones.
It's not Tommy Lee Jones. But it is. But he's not ugly. Why is Tommy Lee Jones
Tommy Lee
ugly?
Jones?
He's not ugly.
Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones. But he was in the movie The Hunted. Great movie. Great fucking movie. But it's like they're not hunting like prostitutes. They're hunting like bad people. But there was another movie. I think it's called like Cold Wind. That's a really good one too. But the kind of based like on Indian reservation. Anyway, they have to hunt this guy down, and so like I always think that hunting bad guys is fucking awesome. I loved a good canine track when I was a cop. It was the best, absolutely the best.
Yeah,
canine cops have the best job ever. But anyway, yeah. The hunting human theory, though. Wind River, you're right. Jim 1031. Wind River, you're right. That was the name of the movie. Wind River. Great movie, by the way. Great movie. All right. Well, hey, that was you haven't seen Wind River? Oh, you'd like it. You'd like it a lot. Your kids would enjoy it too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, because one of your kids just hit double digits, so they can all watch it now.
They're both double digits.
That's what I just said. They're now both double digits, so they can both watch the movie.
Okay.
So we have movies that only double-digit kids can watch, and we only have one double-digit kid. So sometimes he gets to watch movies that the other the single-digit kids can't watch.
That's fair. It's hard to separate, though. I mean, it's possible, but it's tough.
So, but now you got two double digits, so they can all watch the movie. But yeah, they can watch Wind River. I don't think it's I don't know. I don't know if it's that bad or not. I can't remember. I don't remember any bad parts.
Yeah.
Like obviously there's some murder, but I don't think there's any like strippers or anything.
Yeah. That's what I'm looking
Yeah, Wind River was awesome. Somebody says best line from Wind River.
Oh, he's saying it. I heard.
Oh, I heard one got away. No, he didn't. Yeah, good movie. Good movie. What a wonderful episode. Thank you. There's a lot of people in the chats tonight. Thank you guys all. A couple of super chats in there. That makes the show go better. Tomorrow we've got Last Call, which is bringing you all the news, and there is some news to be broken down this week. Deadleg Media and I are going to be covering everything from the shortest runway landing that occurred, I think it happened yesterday or today, from Red Bull. We're also going to be covering this Alaskan pipeline bullshit. We're also going to, there's some new details in the Nordstrom pipeline stuff that we'll go over, and some other stuff. The mothership that, not Walter Cronkite, but the Holter. What's his name? Lex Holter.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, whatever that guy's name is.
CNN guy?
Yeah. Yep. Talked about that there might be an alien mothership entering our atmosphere, which led to me wanting to do the Project Bluebeam episode next week. So next week on Nightshift, Andrea's going to give me the reins. She's going to put the girdle in my mouth. She's going to ride me.
I don't think I agreed to all that.
Let the horse guide the sleigh.
We said we could consider that topic. Bosco. I don't know Bosco what in heaven's name he's talking about.
But I'll be going over Project Bluebeam because that's a good night shift. Something good, fun to talk
that'll
about.
be fun.
Especially because Project Bluebeam was once the most ridiculous conspiracy theory ever. But if you start looking at all the stuff now, you can see why people kind of believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gonna be a good show all week this week. Plus, if you didn't go back and listen to the Comm Center episode, it was fantastic, phenomenal. One of their best. Actually, it was their best episode last week. So they finally got their project dialed in. I'm moving my studio around and getting plugged into high-speed internet tomorrow. So we'll see how that works out. Really excited about that. And other than that, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful evening. And don't go chasing prostitutes. Stick to the rivers and the streams that you're used to.
That's what TLC said. That's what I wanna.
Guns up, giddy up. Until next time. Cheers.
Good night, y'all.